For this roof session, I'll cover the process of building the roof for the Austin Sample House project. We'll look at the roof defaults and how to handle the roof settings if you're building with or without trusses. The program builds automatic roofs. Wall properties and ceiling heights can change the roof, and it will automatically update. If you have a complicated roof, you may need to manually change the roof, and I'll briefly touch on manual roofs. For this project, I'll place roof openings to expose the patio and add some skylights. Let's get started with the automatic roof tool. In the 3D overview of the project, you can see that we have a two-story house that partially covers the first story. On the second story, you can see on the right side of the structure, the ceiling height has been raised. To build the roof, let me go into the Build menu and choose Build Roof. In the dialog on the Roof Styles panel, you will see all of the different roof styles the program can build for you automatically. To learn how each of these styles can be built, click on the style and the program will open the Help System, where you will find the detailed steps to create that specific style. As I open up a few of the roof renderings that were built for this project, you will see some of the styles including hip, gable, mixed gable, Dutch gable, and shed. Let's return to the roof panel, and I'm going to go through the steps of automatically rebuilding the roofs. When you choose the automatic rebuild roof option, anytime you change your structure, wall type, ceiling height, or move a wall, the roof will automatically update for you. To begin the process, I'm going to accept all of the out-of-the-box settings, including the pitch and the overhang. Now you can see that the 8 and 12 pitch for this style of roof is pretty significant. It's covering up some of the windows. Let's go back into the Build Roof dialog, and I'm simply going to lower the pitch from 8 and 12 to 6 and 12. You can see the new 6 and 12 helps, but we still have a fairly significant steep roof on the front of the porch. Let me tile my views by pressing Shift F6 on my keyboard. And then for my saved plan view, I'm going to switch this over to the roof view so we can specifically see the roof planes that are overlaid on top of the floor plan. For your roofs, you can adjust individual walls and make them gable or hip or other styles. For example, I can click on the front of the wall, use the toggle in the lower edit menu, and easily convert that to a gable style roof. If you double click on a wall, on the roof panel, you'll see the different options for your walls. When I toggled the wall in the toolbar to be a full gable, the program was making the setting for a full gable wall. In addition to the wall information for the style of roof, you can also change the pitch of the roof. In the floor plan view, if I select the walls for the porch, hold my Shift key down, and I'm going to grab all three walls. I'm going to go ahead and open them up, and then I'm going to change the pitch. You can see that it says 6 and 12. There's a wrench with a check mark. That indicates that it's using the default. When we built the roof, we set it to be 6 and 12. For these specific walls, I'm going to change it to be 3 and 12. Notice the check mark goes away, and now the roof covering the porch is set to be 3 and 12, exposing the window that was previously covered up. Let's take a look at the steps of making this a shed style covering for the porch. I'm going to come over in the floor plan view. I'm going to click on the two side walls. I'm going to mark those to be full gable. And you'll see that for the most part it does a pretty good job, but as we rotate around you can see that right in this area where there's an overhang, the gable for the shed isn't quite correct. And what I need to do is on the first story, we'll grab the wall and I'm just going to convert that one to a gable, and that should go in and actually correct that and make that a nice full gable wall. Other thing that you can do with your roof is you can control the amount of overhang when you build the roof. Let me just tile my screen one more time. Notice that the overhang on the porch is fairly significant out past the porch. If you want to control that on a per wall basis, the same way we changed the pitch, I'm going to hold my Shift key down, grab both walls, double click to open them up, and on the roof panel is the overhang information. You can see that it is set to default at 18 inches. If I come in here and let's reduce that to, let's say, 1 inch of overhang, you can see that the roof is now pulled in and cropped very near the porch. Now the program includes manual roof tools. If you're going through and doing design work and you reach the point where you need to go above and beyond what the program has given you automatically, there are manual tools. You can draw roof planes individually, and then you can also manually edit roof planes. I like to build the roofs automatically, let the program give you a good start, and then go through and manually edit those roof planes that need to be adjusted. For the roof over the porch, you can click on the roof plane and you can manually adjust it. Now when I do this, the program will notify you that it's going to turn off the automatic roofs. Let's go ahead and turn off the automatic roofs. You can now make adjustments to this roof. And again, let me just tile my screens by pressing Shift F6 on the keyboard. And in the floor plan view, you can also manually manipulate the roof plane. You can use the brake tool and adjust this roof. I'm going to use the number 3 on the keyboard, which is a shortcut for brake. I'm going to place a brake right in the edge. As I pull this back, you'll notice that the roof will now follow up the side of the other wall. There are lots of different styles of roofs you can create manually in addition to the automatics. Let me just press undo a couple of times here. For this roof, I'm going to double click on it, and inside the roof plane specification, you can adjust all of the height and pitch information for each individual roof plane. As you go through and lock different parts you may want to pivot, it will show you in the diagram where that will pivot about. So I'm going to go ahead and leave the lock at the top of the plate, and I'm going to mark that this is going to be a curved roof, and at the eave I'm going to simply put that at 0 degrees. And you can see the result in a 3D view. So pretty quickly you can create very unique and customized roofs in the program using both the automatic and the manual roof tools. Now I want to get back and build a shed roof for this project. I've gone through and done a few customizations with a couple of gables and a curved roof over the porch. And let's say you're in a position where you want to start over from scratch. You've built a few of the roof planes and you want to completely remove them. Let's go in and underneath the Edit tool, let's come down to Delete Objects. Inside of the Delete Objects dialog, you can come in and remove all of your roof planes very easily for all floors and click Delete. And you can see that the roof planes are completely removed. Now a few of the walls I'd converted to gable walls. Those wall properties still exist. Other thing we can do is come back into the Edit menu and come down to Reset to Defaults. Then I'm going to choose all floors, and then down underneath Roof Directives in Walls, these are the properties in the walls, such as when the wall was marked to be a full gable. For the next steps, let's go through the process of creating this style of shed roof. Back under the Build menu, down to Roof, and Build Roof. I'm going to turn on the Automatic Rebuild Roofs, and then I'm going to change the pitch to 1 in 12. Notice the setting immediately below is for trusses. If you're using a truss condition roof, check that setting. Then, if you want to raise the truss off the plate, use the information, uncheck the automatic bird's mouth, and you can raise the information off the plate if you're going to be creating an energy heel. You can learn more about roofing and roof framing with our other videos if that's something you want to learn more about. For this project, I am going to build the project without trusses. There is an option when you're stick framing a roof. If you want to raise it off plate, the option exists down in this area. That is not for your truss information. For the overhang, I'm going to change it to 21 inches on both the eave and the gable sides. I'm going to come back in and we'll look at some of the other options as we go through and build the roof and get it set up to look like the rendering that we were just looking at. For now, let's create the roof. And now we're at a default 1 in 12 pitch hip roof. Let's go through and start making our edits. I'm going to click on the sidewall. I'm going to hold my Alt key down and then my middle mouse, and I'm going to rotate around so I maintain the selection. Hold my Shift key, left click. I now have both walls selected. I'm going to convert that to a gable wall. Then on the front wall, I'm going to double click. I'm going to change the wall to be a high shed gable wall. Let's repeat the steps on the other side. I'm going to click on the sidewall. I'm going to hold my Alt key down, my middle mouse button, hold my Shift key down, and click on the sidewall. Convert that to a full gable wall. And then I'm going to come over here, click on this wall, and I'm also going to click on this wall, so I'll hold my Shift key down and I'm going to use the open button, and then I'll change the roof option to a high shed gable wall. And I now have the second story mostly completed. Let's take a look at the first story. I'm going to click on the sidewall over here, convert it to a gable. On the front wall, double click, mark that it's a high shed gable wall. Now for the area that's a pop out for the fireplace, let's go into the floor plan view. Let me zoom into the area for that fireplace. I'm going to click on both of the walls. I'll hold my shift key down, convert them to gable walls, and then I'm going to click on all three walls, hold my shift key down, use the open tool, and for the overhang length, let's change that to be 6. And then let's go ahead, as long as we're in the floor plan view, and take a look at making the adjustments on the porch. Very similar to what we did previously. So I'm going to take both side walls, click, shift click, convert them to gable walls. Notice that we still have the little crick that we had. I'm going to click on the first floor wall segment, also convert that to a full gable wall, and now that will correct that area. I'm going to hold my shift key down, grab both of the side walls, use the open tool, and change the overhang amount to 1 inch. The default setting goes out. I'll press the space bar to deselect, and in the floor plan view, that roof plane looks pretty good. Let's return back to the 3D view and rotate around to the other side and take a look at the process we need to go in on the garage side of the house. Click on the sidewall, convert it to a gable, and then double click on the front wall and mark that it's a high shed gable wall. Press the space bar to deselect it. We'll rotate around to the back. You see we have a similar pop out. And let's click on the two side walls back here, convert them to gable. And since I have an invisible wall that is separating this pop out on the garage, I'm going to return back into the floor plan view so I can actually grab that invisible wall. And then we'll also adjust the pop out like we did on the fireplace. Let's zoom into that area. I'm going to grab the invisible wall. I'm going to convert that to a full gable wall. And then let's go ahead and click on both side walls. Hold my shift key down. Convert those to full gable walls. Hold my shift key down and we'll double click to open those up. I'm going to change the overhang to 6 inches. Let's go back over into the 3D view. I'm going to slide around and let's grab the side wall over here, double click on it. I'm going to change that to a high shed gable wall. And it looks like we have a little bit of an issue in this intersection where the roof overhangs the other roof. It's a little bit confused. We'll get into that in just a minute. You can see that our overhang, let's just double check on this wall. Let's make sure that's set to be a full gable wall as well. And for the most part, we should be done with the roof settings. The next thing I want to do is go in and modify the roof so that we get more thickness on the fascias. So let's go back into the Build Roof dialog. I'm going to use the shortcut Control R, Command R on a Mac, and let's go over and take a look beginning with the options. I'm going to accept most of the options in here. Notice there's a few things that you could choose to exclude on your roof. Let's go into the structure panel, and here's where I want to make some different character changes into the roof style. And let's begin with the fascia information. The sub fascia is set to be 5.5, and I'm going to set that to be 16 inches on the gable, and I'm going to do the exact same thing for the eave. Then we have the fascia and the eave fascia. I'm going to set this to be slightly larger at 18 inches, and we'll do the same thing for the eave. Then I'm going to come over onto the shadow boards. I'm going to add a profile. This is something that will be appended to the fascia board. I'm going to click the Add New button, and I'm just going to use a pretty simple profile in here. And let's set the dimensional information about this. On the width, I'm just going to set that at 1.5, and then on the height, just a small profile here at 3.5 inches. Now let's see what the effects are on the roof. So you can see that the roof fascia made a big difference, and the white stripe is the molding from the shadow board. I want to correct that color. I'm going to match it based on, make sure that I'm in paint mode, and I'm also going to make sure that it's for the entire object. and then we'll change the default roof material and make the update so that that shadow board now blends in with the rest of the roof fascia. Well, let's take a tour around the roof and see what we want to do. I want to add a roof opening back in here. Notice that the automatic roof does not want to go back in against the garage wall since there's a roof above it. I'll manually edit that, and I'm also going to put an opening to expose the patio right in here, and we'll place a couple of skylights. Let's begin by placing a couple of skylights, and let's do that over the primary bedroom area. Underneath the roof panel, let's come in and grab our skylight tool, and I'm just going to click and place the skylight. Now when you are placing the skylights and you care about the exact placement of it, you might turn on your roof framing in a floor plan view so you can position those exact. Let me go over into the floor plan view. Let's go ahead and zoom in where we place the initial skylight. And I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to click on this. I'm going to use a temporary dimension, and I want to set that to be exactly 6 feet. And then with your temporary dimensions, you can position that. And if I wanted to be, let's say, exactly 6 feet off the edge of the wall, I'll use the move operation and create and position that skylight. And again, if you want to turn on your framing display, you can show exactly where that's at in between the rafters. Once I have the initial skylight positioned, I'm going to use the copy tool. We'll pick up the center of the room, position that skylight exactly where I want it. Maybe I'll slide it over a little bit further and use the same temporary dimension, and we'll position that exactly 6 feet. Make sure I use the fourplex move tool. And that's how I can position those skylights. Now for the back of the roof, where I want to create an opening in this area, I'm going to use a roof opening. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the roof plane and I'm going to snap it to the edge of the garage wall. So for this roof plane, I'm going to go ahead and snap it to the edge of the garage wall. The automatic roof question is going to come up if I want to turn those off. Go ahead and say yes. While the roof is still selected, in the lower edit menu, you're going to find a tool that says Create Hole. With this tool, I'm going to come in and I'm going to click and drag to create the initial hole. You can use your temporary dimensions to size the hole. Simply click on it, come in here, and use that temporary dimension to size the hole. Notice that I have a label in here that comes in for the hole. Let's double click, open it up, and then on the label panel, I'm going to come over and I'm going to click Specify Label, and I'm just going to come in here and type in roof opening. If I choose to have this label on in my roof plan, it will be more meaningful than a number. Now, one of the final things for the roof opening is I want to have the rafters that are going to go through there, I want them to be exposed. I want to position the roof opening exactly. What I'm going to do is click on the roof plane, and then I'm going to use the tool that says Build the Roof Framing for the selected object. And in this layer set, I don't have the roof rafters displayed. Let's go ahead and turn those on. And you can see what's happened here is with the roof hole, much like the skylight that we have over here, the framing has blocked around that particular object. Here's how I manage that. I'm going to click on the roof hole, and I'm actually going to press Control X or Command X to delete it. Then I'm going to rebuild the roof framing by clicking on the roof plane. Once the roof framing is rebuilt, I'm then going to use the paste and hold position. And now I have the rafters that will be exposed. If I zoom in a little bit, I can actually snap this to the location of the rafters depending on where I want that to come in. We'll just pull it to each side of it. Let's go back into our 3D view, and you can see how we've exposed the rafters. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the material painter, pick up the material off of the fascia, and I'm going to apply it onto those framing rafters. Let me adjust the scoping to room mode, which will be the exterior room, and that will apply it to all of the rafters. And now you can see that I have all of that painted, and let's just go ahead and paint the back section right in here. And now I have the exposed patio with the opening and the rafters included. That wraps up this session on roofs. In the next session, we will cover ceilings and the ceiling options for the project. Thanks for watching.
All right. Well, if you have any live questions, there's an option in the GoToWebinar control panel where you can raise your hand. And we just ask that when you ask your question, be sure to unmute your microphone. Also, if you kind of keep it relevant to roofs, if you have something that's not relevant to roofs, if I have a little bit of time here at the end, I'll try to get to it. And with that, let me pass it over to Carrie and see if we have any questions out there.
Thanks, Scott. We have a question from Brandon. Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi, Scott. I'm calling from Columbus, Ohio.
Oh, great.
So the question is about the skylights. I'm a little challenged with. Let's take a steeper pitch than a 112 because it's going to really it's going to impact more in this. But it's like if you draw your skylight in plan. And let's say we're going to make this easy. We're going to make it a 2 foot wide, 4 foot length. When you view it in a 3D, it's nowhere near it's the same width, but the length is adjusted based on the slope. So then if you make your thing look better in the slope, it looks like the wrong size in plan.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a way besides drawing just? Of course, you could just do a CAD box and say that's just the skylight, even though it's not really the skylight. It's a way that you could fake it. But am I missing something about how it works?
Sure. So thanks for the question, Brandon. That's a good one about skylight projection and information. So I've got a couple of skylights on a pretty shallow roof, and I know that you mentioned that you have maybe a steeper roof that would make more relevance to the projection. I clicked on the side of this skylight, you see where the red selection handle is. And when I go in and open up the skylight here, slide this over so we can come over here. And this is probably a 2x6 skylight. And when we go over to, is it the line style? Where is this guy?
You're in the right spot. You got the length at the pitch.
Yeah.
The projected length. And because this is such a shallow roof that those things don't show much of a big deal.
Right. And so when you adjust the pitch of your roof, then this will help in sizing this in your floor plan view, right?
Yeah. It's just that when you do that, the thing that the little box that's going to show up as the roof opening, indicator, so to speak, is going to look fictitious, even though it's correct along the slope.
Right.
So I'm just like, well, my get around piece is just, hey, I just draw another CAD box with the same dotted line color as the roof. But like, I'm just wondering, is there a way I can flip flop between the two? Like draw it in one, but then it projects in the other?
Sure. Good question. I'm going to maybe pause here for a little bit. Al, do you have a suggestion on how to best handle the viewing of these skylights between 3D and 2D?
I usually do exactly what he was saying. I thought there was a setting somewhere. Is there something under line style to display the? Yeah, I'm not sure about displaying both, but I usually just use another polyline that's got a different line style on it.
Okay.
One other thing you can try, and I don't recommend this, is to split the ceiling hole. If the skylight is in an exposed, like a cathedral situation, you might be able to get away with it. But anyway, you can change the ceiling hole independent of the skylight, and you might be able to use that to show.
Oh, I understand.
But I think you're better off with just a CAD line.
Because there is the math part of it where there's a slope factor to the roof, and like a 1212 is like 1.41 something or other. You could do the math to figure out what each thing should be. It's just more of like when you do it so it looks right in the 3D, it looks wrong in a plan, and when you do it right in the plan, it looks really wrong in 3D.
Yeah. I typically just stick with the model And if it's a 6-foot skylight, it's a 6-foot skylight. Right here, you've got some numbers that you can set that CAD box from if you want to use that.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you. I just wanted to see if I was missing something out of it.
Good question, Brandon. Yeah. Yeah. And when you ask your questions when you jump on here, just maybe a quick introduction where you're calling from. So we know who you are. Go ahead, Carrie.
Thanks, Scott. We have Robert with a question. Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yeah, hi, Scott. I'm Robert. I'm from Rhode Island, and I had a question about creating wall dormers. I don't know if you know what I mean. I've tried using some of the tutorials, and putting in floating dormer, using the floating dormer tools, but it always seems to have like the roof underneath the wall of the dormer. So the wall dormer is a dormer where the exterior wall from the floor below goes straight up, cuts through the roof, and say you wanted to make a shed dormer. I don't want the roof, the whole area where the eave is to cut to be continuous. I basically want to cut through the the roof line and have the wall be continuous from the floor below to create the exterior wall of a shed dormer, which I believe is called a wall dormer.
Okay. And we probably have a good article on that. Let me see if I have something here that I might be able to show you briefly. Let's see if I can grab something quickly that we could start with. Okay, so let me delete the current dormer that I have. Let me just switch this to the roof plan and make sure that I understand what you're after here. I'm going to delete my current dormer. And basically what I have right now is an area that looks like this, right? You want to have a dormer that goes up.
Yeah, like create a shed dormer there. Yeah.
Okay. And so if I go back over, let's see, into the floor plan, I'm going to use, the program has, and it sounds like you're already familiar, the difference between a floating dormer, which is false, and a structural dormer, right, that requires walls. And I'm going to come over, and when you use the structural dormer, it's looking for a knee wall, and that's basically what I have back in here, right? So if I make this a little bit larger, and then we go back into the 3D view, you want to peel this roof back, right?
Exactly. So that exterior face where the window is of that, which is a gable dormer, is in the same plane as the floor below it.
Right. So basically what I would probably do is modify this roof back in here and pull it so that I can peel that back right down into the front in that area.
Yeah.
And so a couple ways you could do that. Sometimes what I might do is grab the larger roof plane back here and maybe peel that back so I can make a copy of it. That's going to turn off the automatic roof, make a copy of this. It's probably difficult to do this in 3D. Of course it is. Al, what would you suggest to peel that back easily?
If you start peeling it back, you're going to lose the dormer in order to expose the wall. So the easiest thing to do at that point is just explode the dormer.
Okay.
And then when you and then if you break the roof section, it'll stay put. You can just you can break the roof section and move it around, and the dormer will stay pretty much where it is.
Okay, so I'm just going to make a copy of that roof, and we'll flip it around to the other side. It's giving me a bunch of messages because I've got that peeled back. And then right in here, I'm going to put a break. And then I'll peel that up, something like that. And let's fix this side of it. And then we'll just do the same thing over here. Peel this back, but I got to put a break in, maybe right in here. Something like that. And I was a little bit sloppy, but is that what you're after? Robert?
Yeah. That's basically what we're looking for. I actually just said the first question is do we have any automatic tools that you can specify a wall dormer? I searched through your tutorials and I couldn't find anything that said here's how you build a wall dormer, which is a fairly common dormer.
Right.
And I couldn't find anything, and I tried doing using the structural dormer tool, placing it on there, and doing what you're doing. Every time I tried to cut and paste or peel back sections, I was having trouble with it. So I was wondering, okay, I must be missing something that's really simple. But that this is effectively what I'm trying to accomplish here.
Okay.
So thanks for that.
Okay. Yeah, we'll make a note about if we need a better article or video on the wall dormer plus that feature.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for calling in.
Sure.
Scott, we have Leslie with a question. Go ahead and unmute yourself, Leslie.
Hi. Early in the presentation, you were taking your porch roof and you were wrapping it around the side, and you clicked on what appeared to us to be a 2-story wall. And I think it was the front porch, but you were making it a full gable wall, and it only affected, and I'm trying to remember, maybe it was right before the roof overhangs, but you clicked over there to do something and it didn't affect the top half of the wall, which we both were like, wait a minute. Every time we click on a wall that has 2 levels, sorry, everything's going to happen here. It's dogs, everything. By the way, this is Leslie Garden from Raleigh. Been using Chief a really long time. But it only affected the wall you wanted it to affect when you said make it a full gable wall. And it was somewhere in between when you were making the shed roofs and the fireplace pop outs. And I wish I could remember exactly where it was. Oh, it's right. Okay. She's pointing to me. So it was right on the end of the house. It was the part that has brown siding around the right hand end of the porch cover thing. And then it's over there and you clicked and it only picked up one part of the roof or one part of the wall. How did that happen?
Okay, so good question. Yeah, if you end up watching the replay of that, what happened when I built this roof, first of all, the roof from this porch is being formed from invisible walls. That's why you don't see anything in front of the porch. And the roof generates as a result of those walls. And when I did that, my default overhang was 20 some inches, I believe. And it wrapped around here. And as a result of that, this sidewall off to the side, when I changed the invisible wall to be a full gable wall to make this porch have a shed roof, well, this still had a bit of a cricket in it or a hip roof. And so what I had to do was I clicked on the first floor wall. So I'm on the first floor when I click here, right? As opposed up above, that's the second floor. And if I clicked and changed this wall, it would have an impact to the roof above it. But when I made the change down here, I was on the first floor. And if you open this up, I probably have the setting for that to be a high shed gable wall in this case.
High shed gable wall. Sorry, I didn't mean full gable.
Yeah. And so that's that was the result of that change. And for the most part, this roof is pretty much automatically built, but just changing the wall properties. And that had to be one of the wall properties on the first floor that I made to have that roof not have a little bit of a wrinkle off to the side. Of course, I ended up changing it so the overhang doesn't extend much past that wall. Does that help, Leslie?
Yeah, and I think I'm trying to remember how we built this model from the beginning, and because that's a high living room. It's not 2 separate floors, correct?
Well, yeah, there are 2 floors here. If I go back to the floor plan here, I'm on floor 1, and then if you go up to floor 2, there's floor 2. And what I ended up doing is on the second floor, on the right-hand side of this house, we'll just kind of peek inside without the roof. This room is about 4 feet higher than the remaining rooms. And so that's why you're seeing when we switch back over to the version with the roof, that's why that roof is popping up that much higher on that side.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's a separate
It's a
floor.
completely different floor, and it's a smaller floor, right? It's a smaller floor because you can see the footprint here is stacked, where the second floor is just a smaller footprint than the lower first floor.
Okay, so this is interesting because we have a project we're working on that's a 2-story house, but the living room has, you know, this big high roof that starts on the outside of the house and it goes all the way up over the second floor, right? So the top of that, it's this big, huge, well, I forgot the name. Oh my God. Well, a sloped ceiling, one direction. High toward the middle of the house, you know, low toward the outside of the house. What's really interesting is when I click on my 2 sidewalls of that room, not the outside, but the left and the right, I have several different like wall sections because there are different rooms apparently. So I'm always going to see that. I'm going to see like a lower wall and an upper wall and a...
Right.
Okay, because when I go to paint, obviously things I have missed, like, and then I go to present to the client and I realize I only have part of the wall painted because I wasn't looking at the whole thing. And okay.
Yeah. And if you want, you can download the sample plan if you go to the samples portion of the website. And then this video in the next day should be sent out for replay if you want to watch. And then follow along. You could download that plan and, you know, delete the roof and rebuild the roof. And if you wanted to repeat it just to kind of practice on your roof skills, that might be a good process. Yeah.
It might. Roofs aren't our strong point. We're awesome cabinet people.
Yeah. All right. Good. All right.
Thank you.
You bet. Carrie?
Yep, we've got Vicky Worcester. Hi, Vicky. Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi, am I audible?
Hi, Vicky.
Hi. I have a repeating problem, and it's the problem is me because I can never remember how to do it. But when you have an exposed porch like you have, sometimes mine are a gable shape. I don't know if it makes a difference to the selection, but you have your rafters, then you have your, you know, your fascia depths, which is usually a little different because you're calling out the specific material. You want to have a ceiling cover on that, you know, like a beadboard or something like that, that's visible from underneath.
Okay, yeah,
but
on the underside.
It always ends up being too thin. It's like it follows the depth of the fascia instead of the depth of the rafter. And I can't, I know there's a way to do it and have it show the ceiling surface on the depth of the rafter, but I can't remember which buttons I need to select to have that work.
Okay. So you're talking about on the underside right here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you want to change that material to be different, right?
Well, just I wanted the depth of it to reflect, you know, you have say you have a 2x8 rafter and your fascia board though is only like a 2x6. When I go to make the ceiling covering, it defaults to being like a 2x6 depth. So it doesn't look right. It's not, you know, the ceiling covering is going to go under the rafter. And then your rafter tail gets smaller for the fascia when you make your bird's mouth, etc. But it ends up showing up wrong.
Okay. Have you looked inside of the roof when you build it, or the individual roof plane, which I've selected here? There's an option for your soffit thickness.
Oh, okay.
So you might look at adjusting that. My default is 3/8, and if you want it to be, a different depth, you might look at that and make the adjustment.
Well, what in looking at yours, you've got a 2x12 rafter, but your fascias are much deeper than the rafter. If your fascia was, say, a 7 1/4, what would that end up looking like?
I'd have to probably look at that. If I switch this over to the 3D framing view, maybe this will kind of help. I don't know. But you can see that, let me switch that over to a vector view. You can see that I've got, the 2x12 here, and then my fascia board is quite a bit longer in this case.
Right. So if that fascia were defined as a 2x8, when you've got your 2x12 rafter, what would that soffit look like underneath? Would it?
I guess I don't know.
In my case,
I don't know the answer to it. I could switch back and let's see what it might look like, and then I might have to take it offline because I'm not fully sure that I can do everything right here. So let's take this roof and
change your fascia size just to see.
Yeah, I've already built the framing, so that's going to probably let's just change the sub fascia. You said 8 inches or something?
Yeah, something smaller than the rafter.
All right, so there's I'll just make both of them. By the way, we have a roof framing one coming up. I'm going to put that in a couple weeks, so that might be easier to take care of some of those. Okay, so now that I've done that, I actually have to reframe it, right? It doesn't just happen. So I have to click the reframe. Well, I'll have to reframe the actual framing. And so then let's just switch the layer set back over to the 3D framing and see what this looks like. And so
so it makes the rafter smaller.
Yeah. In that case, it did. So if we look at that, it's that's it says it's 9 1/4 on the end, but that is the actual framing member right here, and that should still be a 2x12.
Okay.
That's just the edge. That's the side fascia board that you're looking at there.
So if you then close the soffit under that, will it stay at the 11 1/4 depth?
It should, and if you want to, I can take a look at that offline, so I don't get too carried away with framing questions, since we're gonna cover that here in a couple weeks.
I'll wait for a couple weeks and see if that'll answer my question, because it seems like every time I have a porch that I want to just put a ceiling on, but at the rafter pitch, it always turns out wrong, and I'm not quite sure what I'm doing. What I'm not doing. So
you can also, if you want to send the plan in to me, I can take a look at it.
Okay, I don't have one currently, but next time I have something like that, maybe I'll do that.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Great. So let's get out there. Let's get back onto a few roof questions. We are going to cover roof framing here in a couple weeks. And so if you've got roof questions, go ahead and make sure your hand's raised, and then Carrie will go ahead and call on you.
Scott, Karen typed in her question, and she was wondering, can you use your existing roof and show how to change it so that you have exposed rafter tails? She's also wondering, are you able to make that change after the roof is in, or do you have to start from the beginning?
Okay, so exposed rafter tails. Let me just open up a simple house here that doesn't have a roof on it. So if we go through, and I'm going to mark the 2 walls to be gable, and if I understand the question right, she wants to have exposed rafter tails. So I'm going to go in and just build the roof automatically. And when you come in and build the roof, this is where you can define the structure information for your roof. And in particular with rafter tails, there's an option down here for rafter tails. and you can browse out, you can grab a profile for one of those rafter tails. And let me just scroll down and we'll just grab one real quickly. So now I've got a profile for that. One of the things to make sure that you can see them, and it was kind of Vicky's question previously about soffits. Currently, I've got a soffit that's going to cover up those rafter tails. So I'm going to actually remove that. And you can do this after the fact too, after you've built the roof. But there's a setting in there to remove those soffits. So once I build the roof, actually, let me make sure I turn on the automatic build roof. Yep. And let's switch that over to the roof plan, make sure I've got one. There we go. Okay, so now that we have the roof, let's go in, and I'm just going to click on both roof planes here, and let's build the framing. And then let's peek at this in our 3D camera view. And I'm just going to delete that and fascia board. And so there I've got my exposed rafter tail. And you're seeing that and would see it if you took a normal 3D view without just the framing, because I've removed the soffit option when I built that roof. And then, of course, I assigned the rafter profile. So hopefully that answers the question for Karen.
Thanks, Scott. We have Robin Stewart with a question. Go ahead, Robin.
Hey there. How are you today?
Hi, Robin. Good.
So I'm calling from Northfield, Vermont, right in the middle of the state, and it is a balmy 66 degrees today after, and everything is melting. So it's absolutely amazing.
Okay.
So anyway, super quick question for you. I do a lot of additions. So oftentimes I'm having like doing an as-built with all the existing construction, which is really fun to do, by the way, in Chief Architect. And but when I do an addition, I have like a couple of examples where I have cathedral ceilings in the addition. So my roof line, I'll auto build the roofs. And then I turn on the checkbox for lower wall if abutted by roof. And I'm doing it as an auto-built roof because, you know, it's going on the exterior of existing construction. So, and it's part of the house. So I have to make it look like an interior wall, correct? So that works like 9 times out of 10, except when I have a cathedral ceiling. So when I have a cathedral ceiling, I'll have still show the siding underneath the interior portion of the ceiling. And if this isn't a question for today, I'm just letting you know, I do it when I do the auto build, when I auto build the roof. So that way I know my roof is snapping on correctly on the interior portion. Does that make, am I making sense?
Well, if I understand your question correctly, Robin, you've got a situation when you're doing your as-builts and you have a cathedral ceiling and maybe the roof hits one of the walls, and then down below the wall, I don't know if this is going to have this condition or not, but in this upper wall, right, that's going to come down through. This is a cathedral ceiling in here.
Yep.
If you zoom in, right?
Yeah, and it's hitting one story. That one's hitting one story. So mine would be hitting like, you know, the first story and the second story sometimes on that thing. And it happens only when I do if I draw a manual roof line and I like force it into the wall, sometimes I can get that upper wall finished to go, but it only happens on a second story situation. It doesn't happen on the first story. The first story turns into sheetrock, good to go. But that second story and that roof just wants to stay exterior, whatever the exterior finish is.
So I'm not sure if this is the same scenario here, but if you look at this inside of this room here, which is on the other side of a cathedral room, you see sheetrock on here, right?
Yep.
What kind of wall do you think that is?
An interior finish wall.
Let's look at it. So if we come over to our wall types.
Yep. Oh yeah, so mine says that too. Mine will say siding plank and then I go to change it. So I can do that, but then it changes the whole second story into the wall finish.
Yeah. So I started with a plank wall, and so on the outside where the roof is exposed, right, you see the siding, and because it's a pony wall, it's using this. And then in the roof structure, where is this option? Down towards the bottom, there is
correct.
I think this is what you mentioned you were using, right?
Yeah, that's correct, yes.
And that's why it becomes a pony wall automatically.
Okay.
And you notice that it's an interior 6 wall because it matches the exterior 6 wall that would be stacked on top of it with the siding. So they stack, and I don't have any issues. I don't know exactly why it may be doing something a little odd on your plan. If you want to send it in.
I will, because it happens on more than one plan. It happens only when I do when it encompasses more than a single story. For example, like I have a cathedral ceiling and it hits the second story of the building. So it's the second story interior that won't change to that lower wall type. And then by contrast, like if I change that from like siding to like the interior wall finish, then the whole exterior of the second story will change to that finish, or that whole wall will change to that finish, depending on object.
Right.
So like that little square. So sometimes they end up playing with the wall and like moving like sheetrock up and everything, but it doesn't help when you try to do plans. So I will send that in. I'm sorry if that's not a roof question. That's a good question, because there are lots of situations where you have a roof that touches a wall and there's a cathedral ceiling or a vault, and you need to use that option where, the roof splits the wall and you have different wall things. If you're in a hurry, there's always you probably are familiar with the tool, build wall material region. Yep.
And so that will do a quick cover up for you. It may not frame maybe exactly what you're expecting, but that build wall material region is a nice tool that you can use.
I use it all the time. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Okay, cool beans.
Yeah, if you want to send that in, you can send it to, just make a note in there. Send it to sales@Chief Architect, and we'll take a peek.
Cool beans. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Robin.
Scott, we have Sarvari here. Go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, Scott. Savari calling from Sydney, Australia. It's early morning Thursday.
Yeah, good morning.
I'd like to know how to create a flat roof with the parapet wall and box guttering inside the parapet wall, with roof being 1 to 3% fall.
Something like this?
Yes.
So I'm running a little bit tight on time to do that, but what I can do is we have a really good video on how to do this, and I'll make sure one of the staff members sends that out to you. And basically, when you're going to create a parapet style roof, one of the ways that we suggest is you build. This is a case where there's 2 floors. So you see the lower floor where you would walk in, and then the upper floor where the heating and ventilation may be contained. So that's a second floor, and that second floor is, let's say, 2 feet high, and there's no ceiling, no roof on it.
Yeah, that's right.
And then when you frame it, we use a floor truss. That's a floor truss that you see in the diagram I have up.
Yeah. Okay.
And that will generate your platform that would be used for both your ceiling and your roof, if that's what you're looking for.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly what I'm looking for.
Okay. Yeah. So, we'll have one of the staff members here make sure that you get that, either chat that out or get it to you.
No problem. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thanks for calling in.
We have Scott here with a question. Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question, Scott.
Yes, I similar to the guy from Rhode Island who called in earlier. I'm trying to build a shed clerestory on top of a flat roof.
Yeah.
And the fascia always comes through into the inside of the room.
Oh.
And I don't know how to avoid that.
Yeah, you probably don't want that. Fascia, the fascia is bleeding into one of your rooms when you've got the clerestory style roof and where it abuts. It's peeking in. It's peeking in. I don't know right off the top of my head what may be going on, but if you want to maybe send that over, we'll take a peek at it and see if we can get you pointed in the right direction.
Okay.
We probably also have a clerestory how-to article, and I'll make sure that gets chatted out. Maybe you've already looked at that.
I've looked at the videos on both the floating and the structural. And
okay, and they both seem to work, right?
No.
Oh, they don't. Oh, our videos don't work.
I'm sure it's because, well, the videos worked. My ability to use the tools didn't work.
Oh, okay, I got it.
I ended up having to make a hole in the roof, build some walls on top of the roof, and put a roof on top of those walls to get it to even look close to what I wanted it to look like. But I didn't know. I learned a lot just from watching your beginning video on how to do select the walls and make the roof type different than what it comes out of the box. Good. I'll send it in and see what you think.
Yeah, send it over. We'll take a peek at it. Carrie, do we still have a few questions out there?
We sure do. We have Jason here. Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi, Scott. I'm in Knoxville, Tennessee, and I'm just getting started with Chief Architect. Thank you. I was a little overwhelmed at first watching some of the videos. Now, once I kind of just took it one step at a time, I've noticed that you guys built it where the tools are pretty, intuitive. Where you have a certain section of something, you click on it, and you have the different things you can do to that thing, and it seems like I'm going to be able to do this, at least with maybe a little bit of help. But
great.
For our what we're going to use it for is mostly additions and remodels, where we buy houses and add on to them and remodel them and flip them, and maybe some new construction if we say buy some kind of a pre-existing plan and make some changes. But our first job, we're adding on to just a small 1,000-square-foot house. It's just a simple gable roof, and we're basically just gonna extend that gable roof out another, say, 1,000 square feet, about 30 feet back. It's 32 feet wide by 30, what the existing is, and we're just gonna basically just make another copy of that room and stick it on the back of it. Right now the ceilings are just flat ceilings, but we want to vault the ceilings.
Okay.
And I wanted to right now it's just stick framing, and I wanted to come underneath that stick framing with some pine beams every 4 feet, and I was just curious how to do that. Is that part of the roof build, or?
So you want to structurally support the roof with a number of roof beams? Is that what you're looking to do?
Well, if it was a new build, yes, but I want to. It's basically they're structural beams, but they're not really going to be used for structural. It's really just for looks.
Okay, so it's just for looks. Okay.
Yeah, it's just for looks. So I guess part of it would. I don't know if I could do that with, say, just exposing the rafters, or can I just add a beam?
So Jason, probably one of the things you could do for that is just use a soffit tool. Let me close a couple of things in here. You could just use a soffit tool. Let me see what I've got going on here. So if I were to come in here and let's say I wanted to put some exposed things in here, you might just use the soffit tool. And if I come over, switch this into my ceiling view. With your soffit tool, you can mark these soffits, and it's under your cabinet tool. And if I just put a soffit, let's see, right in here, and we just pull that back. I'll just pull it back a little ways. One of the options when you have a soffit is there's an option to say that it's a sloped soffit, and you can place it underneath the roof, right?
Oh, okay.
And then, you know, maybe I'll make a couple copies of this guy. That's fine. I'll just delete one of them over here, just so we can peek at it. And then we go in and we look inside here. You know, I didn't make very big ones. And then you have to make sure you have the electrical layer on and whatever else so that you can do that, right?
Right. So you just, to make it taller, a taller beam, you just go in there and adjust the dimensions of the soffit?
Yeah, I just used a pretty thin soffit. You know, if you open these up, you know, currently my thickness, I set it to be 12 inches, then, you know, you'll be able to, you know, poke that down a ways.
There you go.
So, yeah, soffits follow roof or follow ceiling, depending on how you have it set up. Okay.
All right. So, what about if I wanted to support that, like it'd be a structural?
There is actually a beam tool, and if I just switch my layer set to the framing tool, you know, there are beam tools that you've got. I've got a beam that's supporting the porch, and then I've got a beam that's coming through and supporting the flooring in here. So you're going to find floor and roof beam tools. And if you want to come back in a couple weeks, we're going to be going through the framing portion for this house.
Okay. Okay. All right. All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
You bet. Thanks.
Scott, we have Shelby with a question. Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question, Shelby.
Hi, Scott from, we're in Portland, Oregon. And so I mainly work on remodels and additions. So I'm building as-built conditions for a house, and usually, you know, have to edit the roofs to some extent. I start with the auto build roofs, but end up editing them to get them to match the as-built condition. So then I'm needing to do, you know, from there, I'm doing an addition or doing a remodel and wanting to use the auto roof tool, but I'm noticing that it's messing up my previously as-built roofs.
Right.
And wondering if there's a way to select, you know, a certain room and only build roofs over that room with the auto build, or if there's a better method for figuring that out.
Right. Let's peek at this house here. So here's the as-built of the house that we've been kind of working on here. And if you're going to be adding things on, you can mark your roof planes. If they were automatically generated, you can come in here and on your roof planes, you can mark it as edited. And I'll show you why that may be important when you get ready to rebuild the roof. So do you see that okay, Shelby?
Yep.
So I can mark that roof as edited. And then when I go in, okay, I have the automatic roof on. Okay, so that's going to turn it off.
Right.
And then when you go in and build your roof, don't select the automatic roofs, because that's going to step on the other roof plane. But if you click the build roof option, then next to that is retain any manually edited or manually drawn roof planes.
Right.
And then that way it won't rebuild that particular roof plane. It won't touch it.
Okay, so I think that what I've been missing is clicking that editing box.
Right.
In the past, because before, yeah, it's trying to build roofs underneath my existing roofs or changing the ones that are there. So.
Right. So if I take this roof and I actually move it, right, that is going to be an edited roof plane now. You see, it's already marked as edited because I clicked on it and I did something to it. So if you've done that, then it will mark it automatically for you. And then again, when you're rebuilding your roof, make sure that you're using the option to build, not auto, and then the two options to retain. And that way you won't lose edited roof planes.
Okay.
Yeah. And then you can use the reference display. You can save, you know, your remodel plan and then superimpose it over this one if you want to see the difference in the roof.
Okay. My other question, if I can ask, is, for instance, I have a roof I'm doing now, which is mostly hipped, but there's a few gables that come off of it. And I've been able to do that fine. However, the pitch on the gables is different than the pitch on the hipped portion.
Okay.
And I'm finding that some of those roof planes kind of coincide together. So if I try to change the pitch of the gable roof, it'll also change the pitch of, you know, the hipped part that coincides with it. But then that part of the roof is now not connected. It kind of elevates above the rest and is not connected to the rest of the roof.
Right. Let me just turn on the automatic roofs and I'm going to step on my existing roof. So one of the things that I just did here to see if we can replicate what you're talking about is, let's rebuild this roof at maybe 3 and 12. I took the existing entryway and I changed that pitch to be 8 and 12. So that's a gable, right?
Yeah.
And then the rest of these are, well, are 3 and 12. And I don't know if that's what you're after, or sometimes the geometry where it wants to connect in here is going to do the best that it can. It may get a little crazy depending on what your different pitches are. So all I did in this particular case was grab the 2 sidewalls that form the porch and I just changed the pitch to a different number. And 8's even pushing it because it's reaching past my ridge on the upper one. So I might, you know, peel that back a little bit. But the program's going to do the best that it can to generate those. And, you know, if you're manually drawing them, you know, there is the option where you can, well, it's going to turn off my automatic roof, but there's an option where you can automatically join it. But again, the program is going to do the best that it can to put that in at the right geometry. And it does a pretty good job at it.
Yeah, I think most of the time it is. This particular project I'm working on, it's unusually unique.
Yeah.
So I think maybe it's just this particular situation that's a little more complicated. But that definitely helps. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Thanks for calling in.
Scott, we have Roger Berry. Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question, Roger.
Hopefully I'm unmuted now.
Hi, Roger.
Roger from Southwest Colorado. A couple of questions, and one will relate back to the automatic roof joining. First off, is there a particular parameter that I need to set so that when I'm joining a roof against a exterior wall, that the contact point is at sheathing as opposed to cladding, because I'm using walls that have outside insulation, you know, continuous exterior insulation of about 4 inches thickness. And I'm finding that if I try to manually drag the roof plane into the sheathing layer, then it peels off everything above it.
Right.
So I'm obviously missing something. What?
So in that case, Roger, if you do peel the roof back past this roof plane that I've selected here is touching the wall layer, but it's not. If I pull this into the actual stud, Roger, do you see that?
Yeah.
It's jumping back. The program's not wanting me to do that.
Correct.
Right? And if I am, and sometimes I can get that to go over there, what would happen in that case, let's switch back to our 3D view. It's going to shear off the the sheathing that would be below this. And so when you looked underneath of here, you're going to see a gap, and it's going to shear that off. And that's the way the program is designed today. So it's restricted to touching the outside layer.
Okay, so even though I may have basically my situation is I have a cathedral ceiling living room butted up against the second floor bedroom that is higher than the plane over the living room, and the glue lamp that's scheduled to go basically alongside the framing of the second floor bedroom to support the roof. I can't really put any of the framing elements in inside the line of the exterior insulation.
You should be able to put the framing elements there.
Okay, but not the roofing element.
But the roof that I have here in the roof plan, again, I'm kind of talking about this area right here. I can't push that into the stud layer. The program's just not allowing me. Now, if I have a glue lamp beam that's running parallel to this guy supporting it, I can push that beam and have it sister right up next to the wall at the framing layer. It just so happens that I can't seem to push this roof into this gray layer, which is the stud.
Scott?
Right. I have an additional, the additional 4 inches of foam is the sticking point. I mean, visually it works fine and everybody understands what's going on. It's just a matter of when you're going to generate the framing for it.
I think Al probably has a better solution if you actually need to really do it by changing the wall type. Go ahead, Al.
Yeah, you're right. There is another option, and that is to mark a wall as roof cuts wall at bottom. And then the roof section will go over the wall, cut the wall, but you won't have any wall below it. It'll be above the wall will start where the roof is, and it won't extend below.
It might also be possible, right, Al, if we went into the define this wall and we made the outer, in this case, Roger has foam out there. If we said that these were all in main layers, right?
Yep. That'll work too.
If I make these layers, Roger, you know, see how I have 3 exterior layers, which is the OSB, etc.
Right.
If you make the layer, in this case your foam, if that's what you want to snap to, pull those down below the line so that they're main layers, and then you can get the roof to snap to those layers because it wants to snap to that exterior layer.
Okay, well, it's just basically I'm using 6 panels resting on the glue lamp, and then the nail base exterior foam will come out over that. So in theory, although I'm trying to show the walls with the exterior nail base already applied by using the 4-inch foam option on the wall type. It's a small conflict. It's not a deal breaker. I was just wondering if there was something easy that I could do that would, you know, let me render the framing a little more cleanly.
Yeah, I would consider just changing and pulling your layers so that you can snap to them accordingly, and you could build a couple wall types and just see how that snaps for you.
Yeah. Okay. And then just as a side comment, one of the previous questioners had an issue with or you mentioned the existence of the auto roof plane build, and I've generally been using manual roof because I'm an unequal gable situation plus a 35-degree angle between 2 adjoining sections. And try as I might, I can manually adjust all of the roof planes so that they are like within a 1/16 or an 1/8 of an inch of each other. But if I dare touch the mate two roof surfaces to each other, I get a warning box, and then if it proceeds forward, I'll oftentimes have absolutely insane roof planes shooting out like bat wings in all directions, and I'm just puzzling. How am I asking it in the wrong order, or because I do get very, very close. You would think that, well, it only has an 1/8 of an inch to figure out, but it still goes crazy.
Sometimes I've seen the message when you're trying to move a roof plane and it's moving over a certain wall, or maybe even moving over a different area of the project. And the program wants to know, do you want me to move the roof over the wall, or do you want me to, do you want to ignore it? And in my experience, ignoring it, not letting it move it in a vertical direction has been the best experience that I've faced. Because if you do that and you select and have the program move it for you, then it can maybe get a little crazy. So you might check that message when it pops up and see if the option exists where it will not move it for you.
Okay. What part of the problem might be the fact that it's an unequal gable. It's basically a 3 and 12 on one side of the ridge. It's 4 and 12 on the other side of the ridge, but the 3 and 12 side is only 10 feet wide, where the other one's much longer, and that results in a raised roof or raised wall on the short side, which is intended to allow for clerestory windows. But I'm just basically dragging the wall up to make the difference. Is that the incorrect way to go about having unequal walls on the two sides of the roof?
If it's working for you, then I wouldn't say it's the wrong way. But the program, if the roof is built accordingly, the walls should join the top of the roof automatically, and you should have no gaps. But if what you're doing is working, then that's great. And I guess I'd have to take a look at it to better understand, what the situation is.
Well, I observed that when you made the shed roof change on the existing plan that you're working with, that you initially made the walls treated as a gable roof, and then you clicked on the walls to turn them into shed roofs, and then that raised up the higher side of the shed. And I didn't know if that was an automatic feature that then accounted for something that I wasn't accounting for by simply dragging the wall up and then putting on a manually defined shed roof.
I did not do any wall editing on this model. I typically don't, because the program, when it builds the roof, or you move the roof, or you manually edit the roof, the program is designed to have the walls join and meet up underneath the roof. So when you have the automatic roof builder on, and when I built this model, I was changing walls from hip to gable to shed. I did no wall editing in here at all.
Well, but by changing the nature of how the wall addresses the roof, isn't that sort of editing?
Well, I consider that, it could be. I consider that a wall property. But as far as clicking on a wall and moving it up manually, I don't do that in that.
Okay, well, that was the key, and that's what I was taking away from it, was that there may be embedded in telling the wall that it is now a shed wall as opposed to a gable wall, that internally refigures some parameter that I'm not, seeing, because I'm dragging the wall up manually, whereas I should maybe put a gable roof on it and make it into a shed roof.
Right.
Or, just tell it, use the auto build feature to help the framing side of it, because sometimes the framing gets a little squirrely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think if you'll find that the wall properties, if you figure out how to configure them, will generate the model so you don't have to click on any wall and pull it up or pull it down.
Okay, I'll go back and revisit that then.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you very much,
Roger. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All right, we have Kathy here. Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question, Kathy.
Hi, Scott. It's Kathy from Duluth again. I am working on an addition to a home that has a gable roof, 412 pitch. Mm-hmm. The addition is actually pulling the garage out forward and then putting a gabled second story on top of that. So that gable pitch is 10-12.
Oh, okay.
All right. So it matches another gable that's on the existing home. So what I wanted to do was have that roof return. So kind of still looks like a gable coming around, or I mean that I still kind of have the hip coming across the front of that garage. And I know that I can do the auto roof return to make that happen. But it always, or at least it's the auto return takes the same pitch that the roof is. So this garage gable, which is the 10-12, now when I do the auto return, the pitch is the 10-12, but it's in the same direction and plane that my 412 pitch is. Is there any way to change that auto return to be a 412 pitch instead of the 10-12, or do I have to do a manual roof there and create my own?
My reaction without seeing your plan would be to manually draw that return in there at 10 and 12. But, you know, if you want to send in your plan, I could look at it.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can just send that to sales at chief architect.
All right. I was just hoping there was a way to split that, but there's at least nothing that
I don't. I guess I don't know without opening up the plan and looking at it. There may be. I just I'd have to kind of see exactly what your roof change is.
Okay.
It sounds interesting.
All right. I'll send it in and we'll see what you come up with.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Yep.
Scott, we had Olivia email in a question in advance. Did you want to cover that one?
Yeah, let's take a look. The question that came in was related to a scenario that looks like this. And the portion that's, I believe, in yellow highlight was a false gable that they wanted to add for, I guess, for visual looks. And so let's talk about how you might just put in something that's a false gable. The program will automatically build the roof minus a false gable. So the question becomes, well, how the heck do you add one of those? So let me grab a plan here. Let me switch over to the roof plan. And if we look at this in a 3D view, here's a scenario. And I'm going to come in here and just put the false gable in. And the way you can do this is when I start drawing the roof, it's going to turn off the automatics. And the program will probably notify me if they're still on. But I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to click and get the snap right at the point of intersection on the ridge. And I'm going to click and drag up, and then I'm going to click and drag over. Program's going to notify me that the automatic roofs are going to turn off. We'll go ahead and say yes. And then I'm going to grab the roof plane, and I'm just going to pull it over, snap it, and I'll also just pull that over and snap it so that it's there, and then we'll just pull it up and position it. Now, if you look at this in the 3D view, we've started it, and I'm going to grab that roof plane, use the copy button, and reflect it, and pull it around. So now I have the false roof planes, but now I need to get to the point where it has the attic wall. So what I'm going to do to generate that attic wall, first of all, I'm on floor 1. This is a single-story house, and I need to draw the wall up in the attic. So to make that easy, I'm just going to grab these two roof planes. Temporarily, I'm going to display them on the attic so I know exactly where they're at. So now I'm on the attic. I displayed the roof planes up there. I'm going to use my wall tool. I'm going to click and drag a wall. Program says, are you sure you want to draw a wall? Yes. And then I'm going to mark this wall as an attic wall. And there should also be a roof option that says roof cuts wall at the bottom. So attic wall and then roof cuts wall at the bottom. And then we go back in and we've been able to generate that false wall. So by using the automatic tools, we get quite a ways in here, but this is an example where the program doesn't know how to generate this add-on for the roof. So hopefully, Olivia, if you're able to see that answers your question on how to generate this fall style of gable.
Thank you, Scott. Our last question comes from Christine. Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi, Scott. My name is Christine. I'm calling from Sweden and Europe.
Welcome.
I'm pretty new to Chief Architect, so it's my first project. You were right now in a roof plan and you were showing the symbol for the pitch with the arrow. I'm looking for a solution to show this in a section view. So I want to show this symbol with the arrow and with the pitch degrees above the roof.
Okay.
And I managed now during the session to get the pitch degrees, but not the arrow during through the roof label.
So let's let me switch over here so I can see my elevation views. Make sure that I can achieve this, and I'm just going to open up. See if we can open this up. See if this answers your question, Christine. So in this case, I've put a pitch indicator on my roof in this elevation or in a section view.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you wanted to draw a line, it won't be automatic. So I don't generate
that was my question, to get it automatic.
Yeah, I don't have it automatic. And so if I were to draw a pitch indicator, then I put an arrow on the end of this guy, and then I could put the pitch in there. I use a series of lines. I actually store this in my library. All that is a series of CAD lines that I come in.
Yeah, I found that too. I saw the video.
Yeah. And so that's typically what I'm doing to generate those pitch indicators. But yeah, they happen automatically in the floor plan view. If I switch back over to the roof, they happen automatically.
Yep.
And that's just a layer. But in your section view, they need to be added.
Thank you very much. Then I know that I don't need to look any further.
Yeah. Sometimes that's the hard thing, is figuring out what to look for. Thanks for calling in today.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Yep. Okay. Hey, thanks everybody for attending today's session. Some people have asked about additional training, and Chief Architect does additional training. We do one-on-one training where we screen share, mainly like this, and we'll just kind of go through and look at what issues you have in the plan or what you're trying to learn in the plan. And so this is with a one of our certified instructors. So this is available on our training site. And then also, with respect to training, we are doing our first in-person class in over 2 years. That's going to be in Dallas. And the latter part of May, we'll be in Dallas for both a kitchen and bath training and an intermediate training for residential, and then our virtual training for the introductory class at the beginning of May. So hopefully we'll see you at one of those events. We do have a number of things coming up in the video series for this project. If you want to download this project, you can get this. It's called the Austin Sample Plan off the website under our samples gallery. Next week, we're going to be doing ceilings, same place, same time. And then we'll do a couple of sessions on framing, wall framing, roof framing, elevations, cross sections, and then we're going to start looking at the kitchen design in a couple of different segments, since that's a larger topic. So those are coming up. You can sign up for those on the website under our events and training. Hope you have a great day. Thanks for attending. And when you get our email with the recorded video, please fill out the survey, and we'll see you next week.